But my first guest today is a man making his 7th appearance on the show, but check my notes, he's not been on for 2 years. So I think we're overdue a visit with somebody who had their finest hour just a few weeks ago.
Between the leading four in the King George, gaining Warrior to the inside, the Jukebox Man racing up towards the line in a head-bobbing finish is a central Jukebox Man in a classic renewal of the Ladbrokes King George.
Well, it'll take some beating, but he's going to try and do it. Ben Pauling, welcome. Great to have you back with us.
It's good to be back, Nick. Thank you very much.
Nice of you to launch the ship for season 9 as well, in timely fashion. You were watching that back and saying, that shouldn't have happened. That shouldn't have happened, him doing that. What did you mean?
So, every time I watch that race back, I just don't think a horse, you know, jumping 3 out, I thought he'd go and win by a couple of lengths and look comfortable. And then the team behind gained on us, and jumping the last, we were just a bit slower than the others, and it's very hard to come back from the back of the last at Kempton full stop. But in that company, I thought it showed great tenacity and a huge will to win, really, from the Jukebox Man. And every time I watch it back, I think, how on earth did he manage it? So I'm thrilled, obviously, but it took some doing.
Did it make you think differently about him?
Yeah, it did. I mean, obviously he's run twice at Kempton now and won twice, but I don't think the track plays to his strengths. I think he's going to be better with a bit of cut in the ground. He's genuinely not a great workhorse because he doesn't have that much speed, but he's very quick over a fence, and he's got a high cruising speed, but he struggles to quicken off it, and I think that's what you saw there. I think he stays very well, and I think Kempton would actually be sharp enough for him.
Has there ever been, though, a horse that you've trained who's looked absolutely brilliant on the gallops, who has been absolutely brilliant on the racecourse? No,
not. If I'm completely honest, most of my better horses wouldn't necessarily work the house down. Some are visually impressive, the way they move and go through their work, but quite a lot of the time, these horses that necessarily are not the best workhorses go on to be the best racehorses. So you'd be right in saying that, you know, I haven't had, when I was at Nicky's, you know, the Sprinter Sacras, his setup seems to, you know, the Constitution Hills, the Altiors, the Seginos, they're phenomenal workhorses, but they're also phenomenal racehorses. And I think that's probably just the art in which he trains 2-milers. But it's, for me personally, just because you're brilliant on the gallops doesn't mean you're going to be one of the better ones.
Okay. And for him now, his preparation between now and the Gold Cup, what do you do with him now? How have you got his work schedule planned out?
So we said straight away out the back of the King George that we weren't going to run again before Cheltenham, and I'm very happy with that decision. I think you've seen over the last few weeks that a lot of the main protagonists have had quite hard races, and we're only a month away. So I'm happy with that. But because of that, we gave him a relatively easy time out the back of the King George through sort of certainly 3/4 of January, and then we upped his work slightly, and we're sort of starting to really get stuck into him again now. He's done 2 really good pieces last week. We'll look to get him away for a racecourse gallop towards the end of this month, and then hopefully have him spot on. Ben actually told me that he would improve from Kempton. It was probably, you know, Haydock was great, but he didn't have to try overly hard. And there wasn't that much time between then and Kempton, so I wasn't overly hard on him at home. And I think certainly Ollie Wardle, who rides him every day, he seems to think he feels in a better place than he did going into the King George already. So it'll be a case of, obviously he's got to be iron hard ready, but we don't want to get carried away and push too many buttons too soon. He'll be spot on for the day.
Now, I described that as your finest hour. I don't know whether you felt that inside or whether anything pales by comparison to Cheltenham Festival successes. What did you think of that moment in terms of what it meant to your career and your life as a whole?
No, I think it was probably on a racecourse our finest hour. We'd only actually, we're in our 13th season now, and we've had some really smart novices, and they've won Grade 1s, Willoughby Courts, Barters Hills, but for different reasons they've never made it into open graded races. And Handstands was our first open graded runner, and he obviously had a wind issue up the home straight at Haydock, and so he was our second. And it was I think the reason it was probably our finest hour is because it wasn't just an ordinary King George. It was touted to be one of the best King Georges we'd seen for a very long time. There were some very, very talented horses in there, horses like Gaelic Warrior that we know goes well on right-handed tracks. It wasn't going to be an easy race to win. To be involved in it was great. To be in there with a fighting chance was even better. But to win it was pretty special, and it felt good for ourselves, for Soph, for everyone at home, the team behind me. But I think it was actually my head lass's reaction, Jill Tate, who's been with me for 7-8 years now. It meant so much to her, and I think that she appreciated what winning a King George meant just as much as some people have congratulated us for doing it as well, in the fact that, it's sort of a really, you can be a good trainer, but winning those big races takes a bit of doing.
Now, we've seen how dominant Willie Mullins has been in Britain as well as in Ireland in recent seasons. You and Dan Skelton particularly have espoused the view this year that the Brits are back, this sort of narrative that leads up to this point of the season, and we all sit there thinking, well, yeah, wait until the second week in March, and that'll soon be redrawn, and it'll still be, 14 wins to Ireland to however many for Britain. What gives you the confidence to be fairly swashbuckling about this?
Well, I think if you look back at last year, although Willie was still very dominant, because it has been a little bit Willie versus the rest. It's not Ireland, England as much. Willie's just had an incredible strength in depth with his team. But Dan had a fabulous festival last year. The Brits on a whole felt like they were coming back, but we were minus, without doubt, our mainstay on our side of the water, which is Nicky. He didn't have a run of any note because they weren't right.
That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago, sorry, yeah. But over the last couple of years, we've just been slightly dented. But I do feel that, maybe, well, in fact, I do feel that we're getting stronger. I can only speak from personal experience. I know the type of horses that we're able to get, buy, and the sort of looks and feels I'm getting from at home. I just feel like we're all starting to build a strong team, and Dan is becoming a bit of a powerhouse, which is good to see. I mean, I'm a competitor, but I'm pleased to see that we're all starting to step up a little bit.
So you feel your spending power is greater, and you feel that spending power is reflected across a broader base of stables?
Yeah, I mean, we're not a yard particularly famed for going and spending huge money. That's not really our style, but the consistency in which we've got very decent money to go and spend means that we're able to buy a lot of nice horses. And I'm a firm believer that, if you can buy enough good horses, then you're going to keep getting one or two that sticks their head above the parapet as being a graded or even a Grade 1 horse.
So how have you managed to get yourself into the position that you're in at the moment, particularly off the back of losing a whole chunk of horses? What was it? Not quite 2 years ago now, was it?
2 years ago in April.
Yeah, I was looking at when you last came on the show, and you've actually not been on the programme since you lost the Megson's horses. I didn't realise how many horses it was at the time. It was over a dozen, wasn't it?
21.
21 horses in one hit?
Yeah.
That's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah,
so
it was...
The percentage of your stable at the time, what was that, a fifth?
Yeah, about that, if not a little bit more. But, it's funny, when Willie lost the Gigginstown horses, I think it probably makes you reevaluate where you are. It makes you think harder about what you need to do, what you need to achieve, how you're going to get back. Because if you lose a chunk of horses. It's not just, oh, well, I'll just buy 20 new horses, because, of course, at the end of the season, you've probably got 20, 25 horses which realistically are at the top of their handicap or not going on. So at the end of that season, you've probably lost 40.
Yeah.
And then you've got to replace them. And so it took...
And that's 10 staff, isn't it, effectively?
Yeah, that was the big concern at the time. I'd just recently taken on a couple of new members of staff, and they thought they were going to be out the door. But I was determined that that wasn't going to happen. And
Are they still there?
yeah.
They are?
Yeah, of course. But what really came of that situation is, you know, anyone is allowed to do whatever they want with their horses. That's one thing I firmly believe in. You know, if you've got an owner, owners are not your property. Okay, owners are allowed to do whatever they want. They're allowed to come and they're allowed to go. You never burn bridges. But it's what I believe is very true is that, you know, if you're training for somebody and they want to have a horse with someone else, let them. Because if you're doing a good enough job and you're giving them what they want from their sport, they'll end up either coming back to you to have more, or they'll enjoy what you're doing and they'll enjoy what someone else is doing. You know, we cannot control these owners. And so when I was, you know, lost a large chunk of Andrew and Jane's horses, or all of them, I re-evaluated. Certain owners massively stepped up. So Tim Radford rang me up the next day and said, right, Benny boy, let's not worry about that. Let's move forward. We'd had a really good year with 1 or 2 for him, and he then supported me with a sort of circulating 5 or 6. Angus and Lynn McLennan have massively come on board, and we've now got anywhere between 6 and 10 for them. I don't think I ever want to get to the position where I have as many horses for one owner as I did at that point. It was no one's fault. We were all getting on swimmingly and we were doing what we thought was right at the time. But actually, in hindsight, it was probably too much pressure having that many horses for one owner. You find yourself probably giving one owner more attention than everyone else, and then you're in danger of upsetting the apple cart. Everyone needs to feel like they've got a bit of you and your time, and you're thinking about their horse as much as anyone else's horse.
How close have you pushed yourself to financial disaster over the years? Because you struck me as a big risk taker.
When I first started out, it was quite amusing. I had a meeting with our accountant last week, and when I first started out, you have to back yourself. And I was coming home from the store sales with 7 or 8 to sell. And
so
somehow...
What, you'll have spent 400,000 or 500,000?
No, we were talking sort of 20 to 40 grand at those sort of periods.
Okay, so 200,000 or 300,000.
Yeah, but at the time, that is an awful lot of money.
Still is.
And yeah,
for anybody.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is in relation to what we were earning.
Yeah.
It was, or even achieving, and I still look back and think, how on earth did you do that? You know, but you put the pressure on yourself to go and get them sold. You become very proactive. This year's store sale, we bought 14, 12 were for orders. So we had 2 to sell. I think they were sold within 3 weeks. But I think as you go through your career, you're probably less willing to put yourself under financial pressure, because actually that financial pressure sometimes takes away from what you're really trying to do, which is achieve the best possible results for the horses. So I'm, you know, I've always been a risk taker. I will always be a risk taker. It's what I am. But I think calculated risk maybe more than just throwing caution at the wind.
Is there a bigger risk to take than buying a golf course and annoying its members?
I think that's
quite high up there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, Soph and I were in a position where we wanted to train in the Cotswolds. We had built up a decent business at Boughton Hill Farm where we were renting, and we wanted to get to the next step. We wanted to take on the next stage. And every time we tried to buy, you know, a farm with 120 acres, which is roughly the size of land you need to be able to get a gallop of any length in it. We were just being gazumped by London money, left, right and centre. Like, places would come on for a value, and then before you knew it, you were bidding on it well over $1 million over its value, and things, the figures just weren't working out. And the golf course was an interesting angle. It was definitely, you know, it was something that I thought could genuinely work, and it has. In the actual fallout of the golf course and what's happened isn't so much about racing meeting golf. It's about the legals behind the rights. And there's still a golf course there now. You know, we've still got a very nice 13-hole golf course. No, it's not 18, but everything in this world moves forward. It's not going to suit everyone. Some people wanted 18. Some people can't hack 18. You know, it is what it is now. We're through the other side. We've got it all sorted out, and it's a much better place to be.
I'm told it's one of the best 13-hole golf courses in Gloucestershire. Well,
I think it's number one in 13 holes.
Are you settled with the membership now?
Yeah, that's all done and dusted, and it's a much better place because of it. You know, look, there's always two sides to every story. Not everyone's going to be happy with every decision you make. A lot of people don't like change, and you know, if you look back on it, I'm sure there would be things from either side that you probably might have not done or done differently. But that's hindsight. Everyone can work with hindsight. It's a very easy thing to do, but it is a much happier place now, and hopefully we can kick on.
You've played the bouncers that have been bowled at you quite stylishly, outwardly. What gets you off the bridle, if anything?
I think internally injuries hurt me. I'm quite a passionate person. I'm quite someone that, you know, I think everyone knows that I'm a glass half full person.
Definitely.
And so the hard times, the injuries hurt quite a bit, but without doubt, the worst period of my career, or our career, was sort of the year just before COVID knocked it on the head in March. But that season, that took a lot of stomaching. You know, everywhere I turned, horses were just running averagely. Physically, they looked fine at home. Track washes, bloods, all the rest of it were A1. And it just, driving to work in the mornings, thinking, where am I going? What am I going to do? How am I going to pull ourselves out of this? And it wasn't until sort of nearly the end of the season. I think nearly the best training performance of my career would be nearly getting Kildesart to win an Ultima. He got beat ahead that year. And we basically couldn't train them. They were so low in their immune system that if you gave them a piece of work at home, they just behaved like they'd been dragged through the Grand National on heavy ground. You know, it was just impossible. And we nearly got him to win that race. And I thought that was great. And of course, you're buoyed by a result like that, and you think, right, we're going to finish the season strong, and then COVID knocked it on the head. But that period was tough because you've had, realistically, a good start, not groundbreaking, but a good solid start.
Well, this is what I was going to say. You didn't have enough credit in the bank, did you?
No.
At that point, you were still a promising young trainer, and a bad season or two, and you not disappear without a trace, but you end up sitting in the...
Yeah, sitting somewhere...
In the middle. Middle to bottom.
Correct.
And bumping along 25 or 30 horses.
We were very lucky in our early season with some cracking horses, Barter Sills, Willoughby Courts, and then we were just in the wilderness a little bit. And, you know, you look through the yard, and your best horse was Global Citizen, who was a very good horse. He won 3 Grade 2s and a festival handicap, but he wasn't a Grade 1 horse. He never was. And you were just looking for those next horses, and they weren't coming. And off the back of an okay year, the year before COVID hit, and then the year into COVID was tough. Suddenly, You've got COVID hit, people reevaluating whether they even want to be involved in racing because they can't go and they can't get the connection to it. It was a really tricky time. And then so getting investment back in was tough. So without a shadow of a doubt, the best decision Soph and I have ever made would be to buy the golf course, to set out a plan to build a yard which was going to stand out, to actually go through with that. And that was, if you're talking about taking risks, you know, putting that much money into a yard which, let's be honest, could not, you know, if it hadn't worked, we all know certain training yards in certain places, for whatever reason, don't really work. And if that hadn't worked, that would have been a huge risk to have taken. But on the flip side, I would suggest that it has worked. And it's a lovely place to entertain owners. It's a fabulous facility to train from. The horses seem to be much easier, touch wood, to keep healthy. Yeah. And from the day we landed at Naunton Downs, it's just been a different kettle of fish. It's allowed me to train so much more positively. It's just worked, and it's sent us from where you said we could have ended up, and hopefully we're climbing the ladder again.
All right, well, for the moment, Ben, thank you very much. Ben Pauling, we've teed off. We're on the fairway. No doubt Neil Channing will put us in the bunker right after this.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.